Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to our random review. Today's random review comes from 2006, and it's a Czech, Switzerland, UK co-production, and we're back to Jan Svankmajer and Conspirators of Pleasure. This is just a DVD. I don't believe this film is available in Blu-ray, but it should, obviously. This is almost I seem to be doing an unofficial Svankmajer these days. But this is another masterwork, as you can tell by the front cover. This is a film about kinks. It's about disconnection in the modern society. It's about how we can't really communicate with each other. It's about our own little dalliances that make us tick. It's, in some ways, it's a little bit like Cronenberg's Crash or Ballard's Crash, as far as trying to push the envelope of sensation. For most of the film, it's live action. You know, Svankmajer does always kind of mix kind of live action with animation. There's not as much animation in this one, but when it comes, it's glorious, as in all these films. If you're not familiar, it's usually kind of stop motion, claymation, that kind of thing. So this is a very kind of small film, as most of these films are, and it follows a group of people. So you have a young man, maybe in his 30s, that's young to me now, and his older female neighbour, the local postwoman who delivers to these characters. You have kind of newsagent tobacconist. You have his wife who reads the news on TV. And they all have, so they're all kind of connected, even though they don't kind of think of themselves in that way, obviously apart from the husband and wife, but they're more kind of connected than they realise, which again, we are all kind of connected to some degree, whether it's the 6 degrees of separation theory, or again, you hurt the world, you hurt yourself, you know, and why can't we all just get along? This is about sex, horizontal jogging, the oochie coochie. So the film starts with the young man in his 30s going to the newsagent and leafing through the dirty magazines. Buying a dirty magazine from the newsagent, who, once the young man leaves, takes out some devices, electronic devices, to work on. It's a film that reveals itself in little bits, reveals what each character is doing very slowly until the climax, which is wonderful and completely Svankmajer, if you're familiar with Svankmajer's work. So the young man goes home and looks at the pictures in the dirty magazine, but he uses it not for the usual purpose. He is using the pornographic images to make a paper mache head of something. Again, as the film progresses, we find out more and more So again, I'm not going to go into the detail of each character's little kinks, because that would spoil the film. But they're not the usual, shall we say. This is young Svankmajer we're talking about, so it's not the usual fetish we're talking about here. This is about people who are striving for new feelings, new sensations, touch, new variations of role playing, fantasy. As all Svankmajer's films, is a little bit of magic or black magic or witchcraft involved. It is just, again, it's Svankmajer is an acquired taste. There's quite a lot of films in this channel that I do reviews of are, but if you're in tune with that, and again maybe this feeling of isolation, disconnection from even your neighbour. I don't particularly talk to my neighbours. They're strangers. I was always told not to talk to strangers, but this idea of alienation, isolation, again, we're living in this modern world with all this technology and all the ways to communicate with each other, but we can't actually say good morning to our neighbour when we see them actually physically in person. And that really feeds on that. It feeds on not being able to find a connection with people, so you have to go to these fairly extreme measures. The post woman, she does odd things with bread. The newscaster needs things done to parts of her body by other creatures. Again, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, because again, it's such a joy to actually realise, that's what they're doing. Again, Svankmajer is very good at just giving you little breadcrumbs of each of these characters and what they will flower into when they get there, what brings them pleasure. But again, if you're not a Svankmajer fan, you might just not get it at all. But I think it, in the end, certainly for me, because I am solitary Ronin, I did find it quite moving, which is maybe not a moving film, but I found it quite moving. I did kind of connect to these characters very easily. The newsagent / tobacconist, the thing that he's working on, it's a sort of riff on the Frankenstein story. It's actually very clever. It's just, again, I don't know how much cheese Svankmajer eats before he goes to bed, but his imagination is quite incredible. I probably wouldn't have gone in these directions, and I'm fairly disturbed. But it's just an absolute joy. Again, with Svankmajer, not necessarily the longest film, even though I've got one more in his backlog, in my backlog, that's actually almost 2 hours. This one's only 83 minutes. I should say there's no dialogue in the film. Dialogue isn't necessarily a huge feature of Svankmajer's work, apart from Faust, which obviously has a lot of dialogue from Ghost Story and play. Faust's fantastic, Alice is fantastic, but Conspirators of Pleasure is an absolute joy. It is an 18, and it says it contains sexual fetish scenes and brief explicit sexual images, and it does have a woman with tubes up her nose. It's one of the great women with tubes up their nose film. It's another corker from Svankmajer. Again, not everybody is going to feel the connection with the film as I did, but I just thought it does make very good points on isolation and how quite a lot of people are just disconnected from the real world, but then the real world is such a terrible place. It's maybe not a bad thing that people are disconnected from it. So thanks very much for watching. Please let me know if you've seen Conspirators of Pleasure. Please let me know if you do any of these fetishes, and what your number is. And hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films saying farewell.